currently on my way up to northern New South Wales to film with a woman named Jo Nemeth. Jo's lived without money for over 10 years, and so I'm excited to speak to her about how she does that and why, but also about the collapse awareness that she has and how she's responding in her own community.
I've been living without money for 11 years, coming up this April. There were two main things that got me on this path. One was that I was working, kind of doing the wage slave thing and just feeling stressed. And even though I had a really amazing job that was perfect for me, I still just felt this constant stress. But that wasn't the main driver. The main driver was the research that I was doing into our global industrial system and the long supply chains and all of the harm that's inherent in the supply chains. We live the way that we do off the backs of others. The way that our globalised economic industrial system works is that when we buy something here, there's a lot of people and a lot of places in the supply chains that are impacted by that in ways that are not necessarily good. And I just had this growing sense of real sadness. I was complicit in these systems and I didn't want to be. And I didn't know how to get out of that. So then when I discovered that there was this other person that had chosen to live without money, I thought, well, that's my ticket, that's the answer for me. And I read that in this book and I couldn't put the idea down. Like I felt this calling. And that's happened to me a few times in my life where I've just known something so clearly that this is the path that I needed to take. When I first started living without money, I was living on people's properties and backyards with little tiny houses. So I was living kind of outside of the regular household, doing my own thing in the backyard. Now I'm living here in this beautiful house with my friend Sharon, who owns the house, her partner Tim, her adult son Morgan, my daughter Amy and her husband Sam, and the 3 grandbabies, and there's another grandbaby on the way. So it's been a really big, interesting, hectic, multi-generational household. Sharon and I started talking about how she wanted to have someone use the garden and grow food here, but she didn't want to do that. She's not a gardener, so I was like, yeah, sure, I'll do that. And we talked about how we could navigate me living here, what that would look like. I was wanting to stick with my no new resources, living lightly, and removing myself as much from the industrial capitalist system. And Sharon was on board with that. She wanted to do that too, to a certain extent. I don't have a bank account, I don't have any income. The idea of living with just a little bit of money wouldn't have worked for me because I know myself and I know that I don't have very strong willpower.
If you had a bit of money and you're walking down the supermarket aisle, what would be tempting you?
Oh, chocolate. Chocolate, chips, junk food, you know, that kind of stuff. I think that moneyless living is not for everyone and I don't expect other people to necessarily do it. I can choose to live without money. And I'm in a privileged position to be able to do that. A lot of people don't have enough money and not through any choice of their own. People can reduce their negative impact without having to give up money. I just knew that I couldn't do it the same way. So for me, this works really well. Yeah. And I'm trying to get all the juice out to make the soy milk. But it's quite heavy. There's a lot of soybean pop and it makes my arms sore when I do it for a long time. Food's never really been a problem. I've found different ways to meet my needs. Since I've moved in here, it's been different because my household here, 9 people, The people in the house who have money do still shop at the local markets. They try to buy local food and they still get a few things from the supermarket. That'll make a pretty decent sized block of tofu. My addition to the food in this household is through making things from scratch. I grow some stuff here. I get some stuff from the community garden where I volunteer. And I tap into waste food streams. You know, like our society is incredibly wasteful when it comes to food. So right now we've borrowed one of the family's cars to go to a local supermarket who are trying to keep organics out of their waste bin. And I'm part of a team who collect the waste food for a local animal sanctuary. It was tricky for me to work out whether or not I wanted to do this because I have to drive a car, I have to borrow a car and drive a car, which usually I wouldn't do. But the food waste issue it's just such a big one for me. I really hate food waste. They're so cute. Kids are so cute, aren't you? And if there's stuff that the animal sanctuary can't use or don't want, then we keep some of that for ourselves or compost it so that it doesn't go into landfill. So there's, a number of different ways that I bring in food, but I also do consume food that is bought by the household members here for the whole house. I don't have anything that's bought for me especially. Me being here is about reducing the overall consumption and resource use of the household. So it really helps to have that person at home who can use the power during the day when it's being produced, if you've got solar like we have, and to use the water wisely, to grow food, to make food from scratch, to do the fermenting and all of the things. It's work, and I work long hours, but it doesn't feel like work. It's all done by choice. I choose to do it. I could go and live somewhere else anytime if I wanted to, but this works for me. I live in a beautiful household with people that I love, doing things that I really enjoy, and Sharon gets a lot of benefit from that.
I've known Jo for nearly 30 years. I go to work and I earn money and I pay for this house and for the rates and for the electricity. I pay the bills. But part of the reason that I am able to live so frugally is because Jo is here managing the household. Jo is here in the home, living slowly, doing the jobs that I don't have time to do because I go into the world and I earn money and I make art at a theatre that I could not possibly do apart from the fact that Jo is here.
The most important thing that I've gained through not having money is connection. And it occurred to me that what had happened was that I'd started living my values. So my actions were aligned with my values, whereas before I had all these values and my actions, I couldn't align them. And this disconnect between those two was just doing my head in. It was really hard to navigate that and feel okay. So giving up money meant that I could suddenly live in a way that aligned completely with my values. And that was so beautiful and still is beautiful. There are places in my life that I'm still tied into the industrial system in a way that I don't feel comfortable with, and I'm trying to work my way out of that, and that is internet use, even electricity use. This phone was donated to me because I'm doing the social media for the community garden. I'm starting to wean myself off. I'm starting to work of ways to get away from that. I'm building this little cubby house, or retrofitting a little cubby house in the backyard that I'm going to move into for sleeping, and part of that is going to be not take any devices out there and just read books by candlelight. When I first moved here, I was in the shed. I built a loft in the shed and then eventually moved into the house, into a room But I just really miss the connection, a more of a direct connection with the natural world. Being inside a house, I feel a bit too cocooned from the day, night, the moon, the stars. All of the materials that I'm using are things that I've collected from people and that were here already, and literally using whatever I can scrounge up to build it. Just that next step of kind of paring back the unreality of the world that we live in and living in a more real way, a more connected way with the natural world. Hello? You're not moving in here with me? No. Eventually I'd like to disconnect from the internet completely. When I started living without money, I was just trying to extract myself as much as possible from the violence of the industrial system. But then I had more time, and when I had more time, I started reading more and educating myself more. There was a pivotal moment when I read Bill McKibben's book, Earth, and it was mind-blowing, and it really opened my eyes to the situation that we're really facing. So that's when I started to go through this climate grief, and I started to come to terms with the fact that we're in a state of collapse. I felt the grief, I felt the loss, I felt terrified. I was terrified because this was all new to me. The most important thing for us to be doing is to be facing reality, firstly. Life as we know it is ending. It's a huge thing to grapple with, but I think that's the most important thing, because from there, hopefully, people can find their way forward and find some action that they can do that can help not only them and their families, but their communities. I'm privileged enough to be living in this beautiful household, and I can use my time and my skills and this place to increase my knowledge of climate-appropriate foods. That's my real passion now. We live in the subtropics, so we can grow food all year round, but we're growing food mostly that's not from this area, it's not suited to this climate. For most of the year, what we need to be growing is these subtropical perennials, subtropical edibles. Learning about these plants and growing these plants and helping my community that way, that's my path. I felt more proactive and more like I actually can do something about this, I can make a difference. It gives me a direction and an action that is positive. So this is my experiment here. It's myself and a few other people, called the 100 Square Metre Project. And the idea is that we've got this space kind of carved out that's 100 square metres that's supposed to mimic like a medium-sized suburban backyard. And we just want to experiment and see how much nutrient-dense food that's climate appropriate that we can grow here, and how many people that could feed if that was all that they had to eat. Is that possible? Could it feed one person, two people? It's kind of unknown, and we want to find out. My idea for doing something like this is about preparing for the future, and the fact that we won't have all of that stuff coming in, all the food coming in from outside. Industrial agriculture isn't sustainable, so we need to be able to work out how we can grow lots of good quality food that's climate appropriate in our backyards. When I talk about collapse, when I get a chance to, people often just think, oh, that must be miserable and you're just a doomer and that kind of thing, but I'm not. Sure, I'm thinking about preparing for what's coming and helping my community to prepare. But in that, there's a lot of joy. I actually feel really happy and content because I've found my path. I've found my calling, and I've found a way that I can be of use. We need to be doing all that we can now, and I need to do all that I can now.
So you feel really driven by that?
I feel incredibly driven by that purpose, and lucky and happy that I have that focus. Action is the antidote to despair.
I love how Jo has been able to take her grief about the world and channel that into positive action. And I think that question of how do I want to contribute is something that we're all being invited to consider. We don't have to do everything and we don't have to do it perfectly, but we've all got gifts and skills that we can offer each other and our communities as we navigate the years ahead. For me, telling stories is one way I want to contribute. These films will always be free and they'll never have ads on them. So if you enjoyed this film and you want to help me make more of them, please consider becoming a Folklore funder on Patreon or sending a one-off donation via the website. My dream is to be entirely funded by you, the Folklore Pictures community, so your support is hugely appreciated. Thank you so much for being here at the beginning of the Folklore Pictures journey, and I'll see you next time.